So, you've been seeing people play Zyra everywhere to gain free LP, but when you play it, you can't even get top 4 with it and need to know how to win with it. Well, there's good news for you, because Exteria is here to tell you how to play Reroll Zyra Ghostly comp. In this video, we're going to cover the strongest items, strongest units, and strongest augments. And we're going to start off with our items, and the main DPS you want to use is Zyra. Her best end slot item is having a Spear of Sojourn, so she can keep getting mana to keep casting. And then the item next to that would be a Nashor's Tooth, so she can gain more attack speed to keep casting even more. And then for damage amplification, a Rabadon's Death Cap would be best for her, since it gives her flat AP, which is pretty necessary for the current meta, since everyone's using magic resist items. And then for the alternative items you can use is for a mana item, if you can't make a Spirit Sojourn, Adaptive Helm would be okay. I'm not gonna say it's best, but it is better than having a blue buff. If you get a blue buff, do not make it or even put it on Zyra. It's not the best item to have because her mana pool is way too big since it's 60, and blue buff is good for people who has under 40 mana. And then if you can't make a Nashor's Tooth for whatever reason, you can have either a Rage Blade, so it gives you attack speed anyways and it has some AP in it, or if you have Static Shiv for example, you can throw it on Zyra as well. But the thing is, if you have a Static Shiv on the board, you should not make an Onyx Spark, which I'll explain later for Shen. Since they're both magic resist shred item, having two of them on the board won't really do anything. And then next up would be Jewel Gauntlet. Jewel Gauntlet is a pretty good substitute from Death Cap since it has pretty high amounts of AP. But the problem is you have to crit in order to make the damage go through. Another item I would prefer is Archangel Staff, since that item is pretty similar to Death Cap, but the difference is amp up damage instead of flat damage in the beginning. And then her best artifact items would be DFG. This item gives you almost enough AP to start casting in the beginning, and the debuff to hit a tank almost deletes them immediately. And then the after effects to gain more damage after like a certain amount of time is pretty good on her, having over a Death Cap. And then same with Zhonya's. Zhonya's is actually a really good artifact because it gives you enough AP to do enough damage to kill almost everything, and you can use that over a Death Cap as well. And then instead of using a Nashor's Tooth, you can use Gambler's Blade. This item gives you pretty good amounts of gold early game, and it gives you pretty decent amount of attack speed. But the benefit of this item is it has really high ability power, so it's really good on Zyra if you want money and some attack speed. Next up would be the best tank you can have on the board, which would be Shen. Shen is a very powerful tank since he gives armor magic resist to the rest of the board, and he does 3 amplification 2 damage auto attacks, so he does pretty good amount of damage and he's pretty tanky. And his best end slot item would be Onyx Spark. This item is very powerful for Ghostly because since Ghostly synergy is AP, and also on top of that Zyra is also AP and has magic resist shred, therefore AP does more damage. But if you already have a Static Shiv, then you don't need to build an Onyx Spark, but Onyx Spark is more preferable than Static Shiv. Next up would be Redemption. This item is really good for almost all tanks at the moment because it gives you HP, it gives you some mana to start with, and it heals your units. And then Gargoyle Stoneplate would be the best armor and magic resist item since he's gonna be mostly like solo frontlining tank. This will be a very good item for him so he can be that raid boss that he can be. And the best alternative items is if you don't need Onyx Spark for whatever reason, or you can substitute it with Redemption as well. Having a Declaw would be really nice. Same thing with substituting a Redemption, you can substitute that with Warmongs, it's pretty decent as well. And if you can't make a Gargoyle Stoneplates or Redemption, you can do Protector's Vow, it's pretty decent item as well. And the best artifact item you can have on Shen, hands down, would be Eternal Winter. This item would literally like stun the whole board and it gives him some armor and health. And then the other best tank item you can have that's an orange artifact would be Diamond Hands. This item gives him enough HP, it gives him AP, which honestly is not really that important, but the effects of it is very powerful because it gives you 1 gold drop if the unit is below 50% HP and they're invulnerable for 1.5 seconds. And then another artifact item you can have would be an Anima Visage. This item is very powerful since it gives you magic resist. In the current meta, magic resist is very good, and it gives you health regen, like a lot of health regen. And the best unit that could hold your debuff items, which is like the anti-heal and the magic resist shred items, would be Morgana. Having a Morellicon on Morgana would be the best thing to put on her since she can hit the whole board and anti-heal everything. And then if you have Static Shiv for whatever reason, the Onyx Spark on Morgana is fine, or you can throw it on Zyra, but I mean if Zyra's already full then you can put it on Morgana. And then her best Oran artifact item would be Blighten Jewel. This item would reduce magic resist very quickly on Morgana since her damage is tick damage. And then now we're gonna move into the units, and do not worry about the positioning, I'm just showing you what units to play. The position here does not matter, but in order to play this board you have to play from a level 7 position. The reason why is because it can fit in all these synergies here, which is 4 Ghostly, 3 Story Reaver, and then some other splash traits. Because if you try to roll down at level 6, which is the best odds for 2 cost units, you're not going to be able to fit in 4 Ghostly or 3 Story Reaver. So you have to play this board at a level 7 position, and the 3 stars you want is Zyra, Shen, Riven, Aatrox, and if you can, Zoe and Alawi is fine as well, but the main one is Zyra and Shen. And these units synergize really well together because if you have Zyra on the board, you need Story Weavers, which is Riven, and Zoe. Zoe is an Arcanist with Alawi, and Riven is a Bruiser with Aatrox, and then Zyra is a Sage with Morgana. So therefore, these units actually synergizes really well off of one another. And then the main tank is just Shen because he's a really good unit overall, and you could 3-star him pretty easily. And then when you have Soul Reaver on the board, you will summon KO and you want to put blue on her so you can give more AP to Zyra. And then +1 units such as Zoe 3 or Morgana is fine. And then Riven got buffed this patch, so having 80 bruiser items is actually pretty good on her, like a Bloodthirster, Titans, or Hajj. She can carry with those items as well if you want a secondary carry. Or if you have extra tank items, you can throw it on either Aatrox 3, but if you don't have Aatrox 3, then you can put the extra tank items on a Lowy 2, which is a lot better, Aatrox 2. And if you have leftover AP items, that's not a Morellicon, you can throw it on Zoe if she hits level 3, because she also got buffed like Riven, so she's pretty powerful at the moment as well. But in order to play that board, you have to play the early game, and the best early game opener would be Zyra with Story Weaver. So you have Zyra, you know, with her Zyra items, and then Garen with the Shen items, or you could throw it on Jax or Rek'Sai. And then this board is pretty decent because you have 2 Wardens with 2 Bruisers, so it's pretty strong for the early game. And you also get the Story Weaver start, so you can throw the AP on KO already, so it can amplify the Zyra's damage. The other best opener would be Faded. I would prefer this opener if you don't have a Zyra opener or the Story Weaver opener, because Ahri actually utilizes Spirit Soldier very well, and she's also AP and she hits very hard since Fade is a very strong early game as well. So you put Zyra items on Ahri and then the tank items on Yasuo, and you just fill up the board with whatever you can with faded units such as Kindred, and since Kindred, you know, is a Dryad, you can throw in Rek'Sai with Bruiser with +1 Bruiser with Kaboko or something, and then you throw in Darius for Duelist with Yasuo. In the end, it doesn't really matter what you put in here, it's just whatever you can to fill up the board so you can play up to the late game. And another decent opener idea would be Mythic Kog'Maw. You can have like Kog'Maw with the Zyra items and then Cho'Gath with the tank items, or if you have Shen too early for whatever reason, then you could just transfer the items over from Cho'Gath to Shen, since Shen's gonna be main tank later. And then since Caitlyn's also a Ghostly, you can throw in +1 Ghostly. In the end, it doesn't really matter, it's just play your strongest board if you can to play up to Zyra. Now we're gonna move on to the Augments, and the order here doesn't matter, it's just all of them are actually pretty good. And the best one you can choose from is Ghostly Crest. This augment is actually pretty decent because when you hit level 8, you can play for 6 Ghostly instead of having 4. And then 2 Healthy is a very good one for this board since you have 4 2-cost units, so you have more HP on the board. And then Jewel Lotus is very good in general for having the amplification for your abilities, since it allows your abilities to crit, so it makes Zyra do extra damage. And then Haunting House is very good for this comp in general because you're playing Ghostly and it amplifies Ghostly's damage even more. And Sage Crest is also a very good one because it gives you a +1 Zyra, and you get extra Sage on the board, so it amplifies Zyra's damage even more. And then Combat Caster is always good for AP units in general since they're always casting. It gives them a shield every time they cast, and it gives them some of their frontline extra shields so it can stall a little bit longer. Magic Wand's also a very powerful one since you get a +1 rod, which you need since you need a lot of AP on the board. And it also gives you more AP to your board. And if you like to roll a lot and want to 3-star things immediately, a Prismatic Ticket is very good for that because you get 50% chance to get 1 free reroll, and it stacks a lot. Like you can 3-star almost the whole board of this augment. And then for an augment you should never take, even though it's a Sage augment, the road less traveled is not good for this board because you're not playing for level 8, you're playing for level 7. This would mess up your positioning a lot too, and it gives you XP for something that is only good for level 8 and 9 boards, which you don't need it for level 7 boards at all. And that's it for my comp guide video. If you have any questions or if you want me to make another comp guide video, just let me know down in the comments below. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.